Good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Keith Voos. I am the mentor and advisor to the Environmental Ambassadors Program of the Metuchen-Edison Piscataway area branch of the NAACP. The Environmental Ambassadors Program is for high school students in Middlesex County who are interested in learning about effective ways to address the crisis of global warming that we are all caught up in at this point in human and planetary history. Each of this year's four EAs have researched carefully different angles on the crisis, and they will be sharing what they have learned with you very shortly after I briefly preview their presentations. The first EA you'll hear from is Nene Mourão. She has the task of bringing you up to date on the important scientific background to the crisis, on the part that people have played in bringing about the crisis, and on the dire consequences that are with certainty headed our way if we don't get a handle on this situation in very short order. The second EA you'll hear from is Verinda Sarati. She has studied a very specialized aspect to the climate crisis, and I want to invite all of you, but especially animal lovers, to pay particular attention to what she has to say. Her presentation will contain information of special interest to you. Now, we don't just focus on the negative parts of this picture, but also on the positive. And so when you hear from Jamil Lewis, he will be talking about the transition from using fossil fuels to generate electricity to using renewable energy sources to generate electricity, in his case, renewable wind energy. New things are being discovered and tried every day in this field, some of them right here in New Jersey, so be sure to listen carefully for Jamil's good news. These presentations will give you a lot of information, a lot to think about. I know that you will enjoy them. Thank you.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Our presentation is all about the climate crisis. So I'm sure that most of you have at least heard about the climate change before. Climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperature and weather patterns. These shifts can be natural over the course of time, but in recent years, this change has been especially heightened with the increase in human activity. So how different is climate change from our presentation topic, climate crisis? So the term climate crisis, it is a term that it is ultimately used to describe climate change and global warming and its impact. But more than the term climate change, the climate crisis is a term that is used to show a greater sense of emergency and urgency about the increasing temperatures, that it is not simply a change, but it is indeed a crisis. And this effect, the climate crisis, is occurring a lot more rapidly and is a lot more prevalent than most people can expect. Data has proven that global temperatures are projected to warm by 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius by 2050. This is a very serious and acute increase in such a short span. 2050 is in less than 27 years. And for reference, global temperatures have changed only 2 degrees since the 1900s, which was over 100 years ago. And warming is occurring roughly 10 times faster than the average rate of warming after an ice age. This is also a big deal. After the ice age, the planet entered the period called interglacials, which is a period characterized by intense rising temperatures to come back up from the ice age. But our Earth today is warming at a rate much faster than this, which is extremely crucial. Now, let's delve into more of the science behind this concept. So climate change is said to be occurring rapidly in the recent years because the greenhouse gases are being emitted in the large amounts to the Earth's atmosphere with the increase in human activity, right? But a common misconception that many of us have about this concept is that all greenhouse gases are bad. This is wrong. Greenhouse gases are essential to all life on Earth, and natural processes emit greenhouse gases, including carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, chlorofluorocarbons, water vapor, and all these are very essential to all life on Earth. The problem here is that human activity also emits greenhouse gases. And with the increase in human activity and the modernization, there's just too much greenhouse gas in our atmosphere that is trapping more and more heat than usual, and it is contributing to the global warming. So, some of the problems that the climate crisis is causing, let's talk about that. The climate crisis, it can contribute to more wildfires, it can lower many species survival rates, it can threaten biodiversity, it can raise sea levels, it can increase the commonness and the intensity of hurricanes, droughts, and heat waves, which can destroy communities. It can possibly alter the precipitation patterns permanently, right? And it can also harm food production, which can lead to a harm in human health, and it can also melt sea ice at the poles. Okay, so now that you have been given context about climate crisis and the problem it can cause, we will discuss its impact in more details on specifically animals. So animals are very vulnerable to the destruction caused by the climate crisis, which is why it's important to know how they are generally affected by this concept and what species have been explicitly affected, why we should care, and also the potential solutions to combat this issue.
Though climate change affects specific animals, which will be discussed in the next slide, it broadly impacts all animals. According to biologicaldiversity.org, global warming is projected to wipe out over 1/3 of the Earth's animal and plant species within the next century if we continue to emit greenhouse gases and neglect our environment as we currently do. Due to this increased possibility of species extinction, ecosystems are impacted as a whole. The most important takeaway is that no matter how significant a species may seem, it still plays a vital role in its ecosystem. All ecosystems are interconnected in some manner, as is the food chain. Species lower on the food chain tend to be more vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, so it's often hard to detect species loss since we don't notice it until species in our interest or those that we know sufficiently about start being affected. For example, the melting of sea ice, among other ocean-related problems in the Arctic oceans, is causing the krill population to dwindle, hence hurting the creatures that rely on krill as food, such as whales and penguins. Deforestation is also a major contributing factor to climate change, while also hurting many animal species. It leads to the forced migration of animals who once looked to the forests as their homes. Deforestation is also dangerous because it leads to increased flooding, which similarly displaces many animals. This is because tree roots absorb water and make sure the soil is in place. So when these trees are cut down, erosion is further triggered and waterways begin to overflow. These forests serve as a buffer against storms as well, as they behave similar to a sponge, so deforestation increases the likelihood of damage due to natural disasters, among forcing animals to migrate to new, unfamiliar lands. Animals are also negatively impacted behaviorally and psychologically by climate change, especially female animals, which are unable to reproduce properly. Behavioral changes include earlier breeding times than normal, and psychological changes include imbalanced male to female sex ratios among various species. There are currently at least around 10,000 species being directly affected by global warming, according to the IUCN Red List of threatened species, but there are likely more that we haven't discovered yet. The first mammal reported to go extinct due to climate change is the Bramble Cay malamis, once native to the island of Bramble Cay in Great Barrier Reef. Its habitat was destroyed due to rising sea levels. The extinction of the Bramble Cay malamis is just the beginning, as other species are projected to follow in its path. Not everyone understands that coral reefs are an animal life form, which makes their situation even more dire. The way coral reefs live is by attaching themselves to the ocean floor and extracting food from the water. Due to the warming climate, hence warming waters as well, coral bleaching has become a prevalent problem. Coral reefs are unable to, quote, hold on to algae, unquote, and a lack of algae causes a coral to become white and die. Cheetahs are also on the brink of extinction due to their habitats being destroyed. According to nationalgeographic.org, quote, there are less than 8,000 African cheetahs and only about 50 Asian cheetahs left in the world, end quote. Because climate change has been causing more droughts, cheetahs are stripped of their homes. On top of that, cheetahs have a difficult time reproducing in unfamiliar environments, which further contributes to the diminishing cheetah population. Similar to cheetahs, climate change is destroying the habitats of mountain gorillas. As of 2021, there were only about 1,000 mountain gorillas in the wild, but this number is likely lower in present time. Their habitats are faced with a lack of rain, which forces them to travel to other areas to receive food and water. Since gorillas are herbivores, their diets consist of plants which can only grow upon receiving a sufficient amount of water. When these gorillas migrate to new territories, they also fall victim to hunters and poachers. A little closer to home, monarch butterflies, the beautifully patterned butterflies we love to see, are also at risk of extinction. These butterflies travel thousands of miles annually, and during their flights, they rely on plants such as milkweed for food. Milkweed is an especially important food in their diet. Climate change disrupts the butterflies' migrating and breeding cycles, and deforestation also contributes to the destruction of their habitats. So why should we care about species extinction? Most people are ignorant towards species endangerment and extinction as they believe it has no importance to them. However, this misconception is highly dangerous because species extinction does matter to us. If we don't take action to protect our beautiful planet and in turn protect its life, we will face the consequences of our oblivion. All species play a role in their ecosystem, whether it's minor or major. We share ecosystems with many of these species, so if they diminish, the human species will be on the line. For example, when species attempt to combat climate change by migrating to new areas and environments, they may come in contact with communities that otherwise wouldn't have been exposed to them. In the event that these species are carrying diseases, the people in these communities are at risk of contracting them. This increases the chance of pandemics and epidemics occurring, which, as we know from COVID-19, would cause humanity to spiral. Furthermore, species that serve as pollinators, such as bees, bats, and butterflies, have declined in population in recent years. Though this is due to factors besides climate change alone, such as fungi, pesticides, and other invasive species, climate change still plays a significant role in the reduction of pollinators. Without pollinators doing their job, we simply can't eat, and obviously without enough food to feed the whole population, we will inevitably be impacted for the worse. The warming climate also causes many invasive species, such as the water pelican, to thrive. Though this species is native to South America, it has spread its territory to many new habitats and continues to destroy underwater species in its path. It kills many fish populations, hurting local communities and the food supply in general. Here are some potential solutions. Broad solutions that all humans can contribute toward include reducing their CO2 emissions by transitioning to cleaner alternatives. One example is the use of solar panels, which are a renewable source of energy. They produce energy in an environmentally friendly way, unlike greenhouse gases. Browsing on Ecosia is a great way to help the environment. This platform is similar to Google, but it plants trees from the revenue it generates. The money is used to finance tree planting projects throughout the world in over 35 countries. Add the extension to your computers and you'll be indirectly planting trees. Even though it sounds redundant, utilizing the 3 R's effectively is important to protect the environment. Most public places have recycling bins that show what can be recycled and what can't. So even if you are unsure, there's no excuse not to recycle. Try not to waste products such as plastic bottles, containers, and old clothing which can be reused. If you don't want your old clothing, you can donate it to help those in need. Stay away from harsh chemical products as they end up contaminating waters. These include chemicals from fertilizers, pesticides, and bleach. When using these products, make sure to dispose of them properly and use them in a manner that isn't damaging. Keep the environment clean by participating in beach, park, stream, and/or forest cleanups. These are a fun and easy way to help the environment. There are many local parks that are always looking for volunteers to help out. You can even bring friends and family along to make it a better experience. Finally, raise awareness and keep yourself educated on environmental matters. There are many influencers on social media and in the acting industry that speak about the environment. By listening to their speeches, protests, videos, etc., you're supporting their cause and helping bring awareness to climate change. Now that you've learned about broad solutions to climate change, we will introduce a specific solution that can be executed using wind energy. You will learn about what wind energy is, the pros and cons of wind energy, and whether or not it should be implemented in the long run.
Hi, my name is Jamil Lewis, and today I'll be presenting on what wind energy means to the future of our planet itself. So the first thing I'd like to talk about today is what exactly is wind energy and how has it shaped our planet? Well, wind energy is energy obtained from using windmills and wind turbines to harness the wind, which means that when the wind blows, it turns these windmills and wind turbines, creating electricity that can be used to power homes and local communities. However, although wind energy may seem like a high-tech concept, wind energy actually dates back over 8,000 years, in which the first known instance occurring in 5000 BC, when ancient people employed the wind to power their boats, which means that even back then, the founding stages of wind energy were used to create a momentous event for mankind. In the 1200s, the Dutch developed large wind pumps to drain the lakes and marshes of the Rhine River Delta. If they hadn't had those large wind pumps, they would not have been able to create their cities and homes in the area by the Rhine River Delta without the fear of the flooding. And it also played a vital role in the country that we live in today. The American colonists began by using windmills to grind grain, pump water, and cut wood at sawmills in their daily lives. So these windmills were able to help out in the communities and reduce labor and protect and help them live high quality lives. So as I was saying, wind energy comes with many benefits. And one of these benefits is that the wind is everywhere, which means that it is a resource that's extraordinarily available and inexhaustible. So we can use it forever, it will never run out. And due to our ability to pinpoint where the wind blows the strongest with wind miles per hour, it is possible to install windmills where it can maximize the most energy. So we can get the most energy out of it. The windmills also work best in remote areas. So they can be put far away from any communities or cities, far away from them, and they will still work fine. And they don't take a lot of space to run. So you can run them and you can have like a lot of them together with windmill farms, and they can all coexist. They're very consistent, especially in the medium and long-term timeframes. With windmills, lifespan is about 20 to 30 years without needing any repairs. And their maintenance is very simple and very cheap because they are built very well. So they don't need as much repairs as solar panels or other green energy. And another great selling point is that they have an excellent conversion of electricity. Almost 50% of the energy they produce is converted into energy that is used for communities, which is a very high percentage, much higher than much of the renewable energy that we use today. So after all this, you may be saying, wow, wind energy is great. However, there are some drawbacks to the wind energy, and we don't know their significance. One of the negatives that surround wind energy is the negative effects on local wildlife. However, such as the birds and the whales and marine animals that have been washing up on the shore of the Jersey beaches. However, there's no proof tying windmills to be the source of causing the deaths of these animals. So there's no conclusive proof by the autobiopsies, and there's no way to tell if the windmills are causing this. And another impact is on birds. People say that the windmills will kill birds. However, more birds are killed by house cats every year than by windmills. Well, so which is pretty significant. Some people say that noise pollution is a big factor. However, the windmills don't create are mostly silent and they're far away from communities, so you would not mostly have a chance to hear a windmill, and they will not make a very loud noise. Another opinion is that they alters the visual aesthetics of the land. People don't really like to see windmills. However, for me, I feels like the windmills are a pinnacle of the achievement that we're making in striving to protect our planet and create green energy future that can protect everyone. One last drawback for the wind energy is that it exists in a remote location. And that means that it's away from the maintenance and power plants that we need to transmit the energy to our communities. So when the windmills, if there's an accident with a windmill and it has a problem, maintenance is not right away to fix the problem and address it. And the cabling and infrastructure needs to be in place to transmit the energy to the power plants so it can go to the houses. So I think, personally, I believe that wind energy is an interesting sector to explore and innovate in as we strive to protect and innovate in our world for a green energy future. One of these things is innovating with more ocean windmills. 70% of the world is covered in water, and if we were able to put more windmills in the ocean, we'd be able to harness more electricity worldwide for everyone. And we'd be able to accomplish our ultimate goal of reducing our carbon dioxide emissions and eliminating the non-renewable energy sources that are used today, and therefore avoiding the extraordinarily horrible effects of global warming. And in the future, innovations will continue to be made, including bladeless wind energy, which has no sound and no noise. As you can see below, it doesn't have any blades. It takes the vibrations of the wind and transmits it into usable energy for us to be used for general population. And in the future, innovations such as floating offshore wind plants that don't disturb people or marine life could be very common. So everyone would be able to live in our harmonious green future planet. So now that we've discussed the broad and specific solutions to climate change, we want to emphasize the importance of making these resources available to all demographics. People of low to moderate incomes are often unable to afford expensive resources, which makes our collective efforts ineffective. Thank you for listening to my part of the presentation.